Good evening, folks. Welcome back to Celtic Fans TV. This is, believe it or not, the starting 11 prediction for Sunday's game against Kilmarnock. Apologies that it's a slightly later video than I had planned today. I have been waiting all afternoon and much of the evening for Celtic to upload Brendan Rodgers' press conference from today. I think that tells you everything you need to know about the content of it. I'm sure that most of you will have read or listened to or now watched Brendan Rodgers' press conference from today. It's the only place for us to start. I promise we will talk about the Kilmarnock game at the end of this video for at least 3 minutes or so. Like I say, there's only one place to start. I think going into today, everybody's been waiting with bated breath for Brendan Rodgers to speak. It's been the international break. A lot has unfolded since the transfer window closed, which was obviously after the game at Ibrox, if you remember. There's been a lot of fallout from it, a lot of fan response, the statements of no confidence in the board, the meeting of the fan groups the other night there, which I'll come back to. And I think we were all eager to hear what Brendan Rodgers would have to say today. And I need to be honest, I had a concern that he might have calmed down, that 2 weeks on he might be a little bit more relaxed about it, and he might come out and try and paint a united front and suggest that everybody is aligned. It's a collective responsibility. We have to move on now. The fans need to get behind the team. All those sorts of things. I was concerned that he might say those things today, but he didn't. I think it was very hard hitting. I think it was blockbuster from start to finish. I think it was all of the strengths you come to associate with Brendan Rodgers in a press conference. He's so experienced in these type of situations, and I think he hit the nail on the head on numerous topics. We'll come back to comments on the fan sentiment around the board, the anger, the frustration, the intention to start a form of protest action this weekend. He also had his say on the transfer business as well. But I think most blistering from the press conference today were his comments about being briefed against in the Scottish Sun last weekend. He called it a cowardly act. He said that he didn't know who it was. If I bring up the quotes just now, it was interesting when I was shown that. My honest take, he said, I thought it was a cowardly action from whoever it is. Was I surprised by it? Not really. I was briefed upon the last time I was here, where I left, and now that I've come back. He was then asked if he knew who it was, and he said no. He left a very, very long pause before saying no, which you can leave up to your own mind to try and speculate as to who he was talking about. He made reference to the people on the board who he communicates and works with on a daily basis, being Michael Nicholson, Chris Mackay, and Dermot Desmond. There's one high-ranking member of the Celtic board that he omitted, and he seems to always omit Peter Lawwell when he's talked about the people that he works closely with on the board in the last few weeks, the last few months. Maybe in the second time round, I suppose you could draw a conclusion that, well, Peter Lawwell's just the chairman, he's probably not working with him on a daily basis, but the takeaway seems to be that people are speculating that it was Peter Lawwell who leaked that to the Scottish Sun. Of course, we don't know that. It could be anybody. He certainly didn't hold back when he was asked at the end of the press conference if Celtic do an investigation. I think it was Celtic Underground who asked him this question, who are one of the fan media at the press conference today. If Celtic do an investigation and uncover who it is, should they resign? And he said, absolutely no doubt. I think that tells you everything about what is going on behind the scenes at Celtic just now. I think the 3.5 hour wait between Callum McGregor's press conference and uploading this one will tell you there was probably some internal discussion about whether they should put it out. The audio and the selected video clips had already been posted on social media by Sky Sports and various other outlets. And you can understand why. I think Brendan Rodgers made it very clear today where he stands. He also said, and I want to bring this up now, on the topic of fan sentiment. The club put out a statement, and I'm not here to answer those questions because they are not mine. over the coming weeks it will become clear how that evolves. I'm not here to tell the supporters how to feel. The entire quote is longer, and if you want to hear it in full, you can see it on Celtic's YouTube channel, and you can get the full quotes online as well. I'm really happy that you said I'm not here to tell the supporters how to feel, because that was one thing that I thought I'd be let down if he even alluded to trying to tell the supporters to sort of rein it in and get behind the team. We all want to get behind the team. We're going to get behind the team. But I think the anger and the frustration directed to the boardroom is not going to go away. And that does bring us back to the fan meeting the other night, which I was at. I had to attend virtually. So I called in on Zoom. I think it's clear there's consensus between most of the fan groups that some action has to be taken. I think there's clear agitation and unrest about how the club is run, because we've all watched the same things unfold. We've watched the same problems play out year after year for the best part of 10, 15, maybe even 20 years, in terms of being underprepared for European qualifiers, not handling business in a timely enough manner in the transfer window. We're all sick of it. Obviously, there's always going to be disagreement on what action should be taken, what kind of protests should be actioned, how we move forward. It obviously has been agreed off the back of that meeting that there will be a protest, a late arrival protest at Rugby Park on Sunday, where fans will arrive in the 12th minute, to the link to the 12th man being the support, to try and draw attention to the fact that protest action is starting against the board. Now, it's up to everybody individually what decision they want to make on that. If they're at the game, if they choose to go in as normal, that's fine. I think one of the big takeaways from this is that the energy in the fan base is not one of infighting, and it's not one of telling people what to do and how to do it. Everybody's free to make their own decisions, whether it be with leaving the home cup ticket scheme, boycotting the Europa League packages, late arrivals at games, whatever it may be. Everybody's free to make their own decision, but I think there is an energy in the fan base to keep the I suppose agitation going, to keep the frustration going, to not let it die down, because there may have been periods in the past where things like this have happened, although I think not to this level, not to this extent. This seems like the straw that's broken the back of the support. I think time's gone by, a few good results have maybe made things like this dissipate, and I think there's a real intention not to let that happen this time. To bring it back to Brendan's press conference today on the transfer business, he also said it was clear what we needed, and we needed it early. We had these qualification games. Summer 25 was a critical window for us to get players in and be ready for these games, and we weren't ready. That made me leave last time. This time I won't do that 100%. I said 150% a few weeks ago, so I'll go back to 100 because that's easier. It didn't make me think of walking away. I just felt empty, if I'm honest. Now, I think empty is a good word there, because that's kind of how I felt after it. I think that's how I feel just now. There's still anger, there's still frustration at the board, but you are left with an empty feeling in terms of your energy towards the season now. I think the best takeaway from today, from everything that Brendan Rodgers said, and it's probably the most energising thing I've heard come out of Celtic in the last 2 or 3 weeks, maybe even longer than that, is Brendan Rodgers saying, "I've never been more determined to succeed this season in the face of everything that's happened." And particularly, I think he said it in reference to being briefed against in the Sun, with the stories about him turning the club against itself and trying to manufacture a way out the door, and whatever else was printed in that leak. I think if this gives Brendan Rodgers a chip on his shoulder to push on this season, and try and light the fire underneath the team, then hopefully that will stand us in good stead, because he was keen to point out this himself, that obviously him and the players are not absolved in the responsibility for the poor performances against Kyrat and otherwise this season. But I think there's undoubtedly been an energy transfer through the whole club, and I think it comes from the board and the way they've handled the business. I think the players will know consciously and subconsciously that the quality hasn't been there. There has been players, and there is players in the team who want to leave the club, which is another thing the manager has to deal with. The other big takeaway from today was his comments on Dyson Maeda. He said Dyson wanted to leave at the end of February. I still feel that if a player wants to leave, we have to be ready for that, but we weren't in this window. Now again, it's astonishing really when you think about back to the Kyogo exit, where it was clear when he changed agent that he was going to move on, and then he left towards the end of January and we couldn't replace him. We now find ourselves in this position again where Dyson's obviously had conversations with the manager, possibly with the club, to say that he feels he's ready for a new challenge, and Brendan Rodgers seemed to say today that there was bids, there was opportunities for him to go. There would have been good opportunities in his career for his family, a move. He's been here for 4 years. I think Brendan Rodgers empathises with the player in that situation. He also referenced when he said he has to convince, quote unquote, convince Dyson to go again this season. That he had the same situation with Luis Suarez when he nearly went to Arsenal at Liverpool, when they had the whole £40 million, £40 million and £1 bid, if you remember that, and then Suarez stayed at Liverpool and went on to have a brilliant season the next time round, and then moved to Barcelona. He referenced that today, Brendan Rodgers, but I do think it's a difficult thing for him to try and navigate, to get Dyson Maeda to really buy in. And again, I think it's maybe difficult to read into this and draw any like real comparisons and be certain about these things, but it's really difficult for Dyson Maeda, even subconsciously, if he wants to leave the club, to really be fully committed. There's no doubt, I mean, by no means am I questioning Dyson Maeda's commitment. He's been incredible for what he's given to Celtic over his time here, but I think when you come to that point in your cycle where you want to move on and it hasn't transpired, it might be difficult for him to, like I say, consciously and subconsciously reach those levels, put in what he's been putting in, produce the quality that he produced last season. I think that's really difficult, and I think it's difficult for the manager as well. The likes of Yang, who hasn't convinced anyone in terms of his quality, but again, he was nearly out the door. He's still here. We'll come to the team for Sunday in a minute, but I think there's numerous positions across the pitch that Brendan Rodgers has got a whole lot of work to do in terms of his man management skills, his ability to get these guys to buy in, to get them to forget whatever's going on in the summer, anything that's happening off the pitch, because these things will still be rumbling on with agents and with a view to future transfer windows and what the players' next moves will be. But he's got to focus the players on the here and now, on what's happening on the pitch, and he's going to have to earn his money to do that. I don't envy him. I think he's been put in a dreadful position by the club this summer. He made a couple of comments today alluding to being the person who has to carry it all, because he has to answer for the club every single week. He's the only person who has to answer publicly for the club, and I think you can tell that has worn on him, and he's probably grateful for the 2 weeks that he got in that international break there before he had to come in front of the media today. I'll jump to the comments now and try and pick out any comments for you guys. Get your comments in the live chat if you haven't already. Let's have a look then. Loads of you with us. I personally won't be bothered too much when Brendan Rodgers moves on. I get that sentiment. I know that throughout his time here, there's been criticism of Brendan Rodgers in terms of when there's a dip in form, the style of play, the speed in the play. I think obviously we've talked about on the channel this summer the ups and downs in the media conferences with the board and with the transfer business. I get that there's a lot of people who think it's the best time for a natural parting of ways in 8 or 9 months' time, and I don't necessarily disagree with you. I don't think, regardless of what your opinion is on Brendan Rodgers, that you can argue with his record as a Celtic manager. It's there in black and white. The records are there, the trophies are there, the trebles are there. He was even keen to point out today, again, maybe this comes back to him having a wee bit of a chip on his shoulder, about how rare a treble was before he arrived and raised the standards, and it's now the expectation year in and year out, and that was never the case before Brendan Rodgers arrived, and we won those consecutive trebles, and it was him that set that all in motion. But I think it would have been very easy for Brendan Rodgers to go into that press conference today and just bury his head in the sand and say, do you know what, in 9 months' time, this will not be my problem. So I'm just going to put a brave face on, and not really come out with any clear, hard-hitting answers. I'm just going to be a human shield for the board again, and in 9 months' time I'll be gone and I'll not need to worry about it anymore. He didn't do that. So I think that's credit to him, and I think he spoke well today, all things considered. Any other comments, Jamie McCowan? What happened to your Celtic top? Usually wearing one on these videos. Good question, Jamie. It is Friday night. I suppose I've intentionally not wore a Celtic shirt tonight with the whole agitation around not buying merchandise. I actually haven't bought any merchandise this season so far, mainly because I don't like most of it. I don't think Adidas have let us down with a lot of the kit designs and stuff, so I hadn't bought any before all of this kicked off, and I still haven't bought any just now, so it's a plain old t-shirt. Apologies. We're going to get to the team in a minute. I actually forgot to give you this roller banner when we started. This is a new live setup, by the way, so bear with us. We've been going 20 minutes now, and I don't think there's been any major errors so far. Let us know in the comments if there's any issues. John Curry, the worry is of a manager they'll recruit next season when Brendan is gone. The worry is what Patsy of a manager will recruit next season when Brendan is gone. Aye, that is a problem for another day, John. Who will be the next manager? Because I think it's clear today Brendan Rodgers did say that he hasn't been made an offer. Again, I know that loads of you are happy with that and think it's a good time for him to leave at the end of this season. But it does beg the question, where are we going to go next? I think what has played out, I think this has always been the case, but the club's record, the club's stature, the club's financial position, it's constantly talked about how well the club is run. But really, the financial position the club has built up is on the back of excellent managers and players over the years. And of course, there's been a board role in recruiting those people. But I think when we get the accounts, the report, the annual report out in a few weeks' time, whenever it might be, and we've got huge profits and huge sums of money again, that's not going to be a symbol of success. That's a symbol of failure for a football club who can't seem to do transfer business in the right way, but is sitting on millions and millions of pounds, and no longer can it be accepted that is something that's to be paraded as a huge badge of honour for Celtic, because this season has laid everything bare. I just want to pick up before we get to the team for Sunday. Another thing Brendan Rodgers said today was that on a personal level, he hugely respects Dermot Desmond, communicates with him regularly. I thought the comment on a personal level was interesting, and again, maybe I'm reading too much into this, but I think on a personal level was quite telling, because I think that probably means that he's butted heads with Dermot Desmond on transfers, and Dermot Desmond is part of the issue here on transfer business and how it's done, and the people that are there handling it, the structure, the recruitment structure at the football club. Those are all things controlled by Dermot Desmond, and I think that's the crux of the issue here. Celtic Football Club is a one-man autocracy. It's Dermot Desmond's autocracy. He's the one person that makes all the decisions. And I know there's a huge clamour for new people on the board, and I think that's necessary. I absolutely think that's necessary, but I also understand that Dermot Desmond is the man that makes the decisions. And I think that comment today from Brendan Rodgers saying that on a personal level he's got huge respect for Dermot Desmond tells you that on a business level, on a I'm the Celtic manager and you're the Celtic major shareholder, if you like, they've had some issues this summer, and I'm sure that's not really news. If you think I'm reading too much into that, then let us know in the comments. But that's what I took from that. I think there's obviously been issues there, and I think the fact that there's been no offer on the table for Brendan Rodgers at any time. I know that right now in the last 5-6 months, you could say it's not there because the team isn't playing well enough. But I think the fact that even if you go back to the middle of last season where the team were flying, there was no talk of a new contract either. I think that tells you where the board is at as well. But John's right to point out in the comments, where will they go next? That's a huge concern when you think about the current structure at Celtic. Right, let's look ahead then to Sunday's game. I did promise I'd talk about it for at least a few minutes. We'll start in goals with the team as we always do. I think Kasper Schmeichel will play. After that offside John Souttar goal in the derby, I think we were all clamouring for Sinisalo. I don't know what Kasper was doing there. He was caught in absolute no man's land. He didn't get to the ball. He actually shrunk in size as well. I mean, thank goodness it was offside because it was a huge, huge calamity from Kasper. So maybe some concerns there. I think Sinisalo's done well, but I don't see any changes in that department anytime soon. I need to flag before MD slaughters me in the comments. There is some there's some new faces in this lineup that I didn't have cartoons ready for. So one of them's Colby Donovan, who will start because Anthony Ralston is out injured. It's a great opportunity for him. I think he's impressed in his cameos off the bench. A totally different prospect having to start for Celtic in a league game, but a great opportunity for the young man. I think he looks a good player, and again, hopefully he can come in, play without any fear, and bring some energy to the team. I think he looks ready. I think he looks game when he's played. I think he looks like he's up for a physical battle. He can get himself about the pitch. So good luck to him if he does get that start on Sunday. Completing the back four, I expect to be Carter Vickers, Scales, and believe it or not, I'm going for Sriracha because Brendan Rodgers said that Kieran Tierney's missed 8 or 9 days of training. He obviously withdrew from the Scotland squad, and I think that means Sriracha will play. He did come off the bench at Ibrox, the Uruguayan, and he looked every inch a South American fullback, lots of energy, charging about the pitch. One very, very questionable decision to rush out and foul Finlay Curtis when there was absolutely no need to do it. But I think Sriracha might get the nod because Kieran's been out for 8 or 9 days. He's got this question mark around his condition. He's not been able really, I don't think he's even got near 90 minutes or completing a full game yet, KT. So I think on a plastic pitch, and with that in the background, the Scotland injury, I think Sriracha will get the nod. Now in midfield, there's huge issues around the energy, around the legs, around the ability to pass the ball forward in recent games. That's 3 of Celtic's last 4 games, by the way, in case you forgot. I know it's been 2 weeks, but 3 of Celtic's last 4 games have finished 0-0. McGregor will captain the team. I'm going for Atate and Nygren to complete the midfield. Again, that's what I think Brendan Rodgers will do. I'd like to see something else in there. I'd like to see more of Bernardo again. I'd like to see Luke McCowan. I don't think anybody in the team recently can speak up and say that they deserve their jersey over anybody else who hasn't been involved recently. I don't think there's been any real proper high level of performance, but I just think Brendan will go with that midfield on Sunday. Nygren started on the right hand side at Ibrox. I thought he was really disappointing. He's clearly not a winger. He's not got the pace for it. And I've got concerns about him in big games. Obviously, we'll see how it goes when we get into the Europa League and play some of the bigger away games domestically as well throughout this season. But I think the dynamism and maybe the speed just isn't quite there with him. I think he's a nice technical footballer, but he's going to have to do more, I think, in those bigger games. And in the front three, we obviously have the introduction of Taneke, Balikwisha, Kelechi Iheanacho. Iheanacho's been training, I think, since Monday. Who knows where his condition is at because he's not played a lot of football at all. He doesn't look in great shape, so I'm not sure that he'll be involved from the start. I'm going James Forrest on the right hand side because, as I see it, Forrest and Yang are the only players who can play from the right hand side. There, there is this suggestion that Taneke or Balikwisha can play from the right hand side. They've played basically their entire careers on the left hand side. We'll see if any of them can slot in there and do a job on the right hand side. But such is the state of the squad the Celtic hierarchy have assembled this summer, that Forrest and Yang are the primary options on the right hand side. I'm going Balikwisha on the left. I'd like to see a lot more from him. I thought he was disappointed. Really hard to judge a player in their first start for Celtic at Ibrox. I just thought there was one or two opportunities where he got James Tavernier one-on-one, and you think, if nothing else, just run at him, stand him up, try and get by him, try and make something happen. But he sort of took the easy option and turned back inside and played a simple pass backwards, which symptomised the whole performance on the day. It wasn't just him, and it's like I say, it's hard to be too critical of him, I suppose, because he only just arrived. He's barely got to know his teammates. But I just thought, when you're a wide player in those positions, that's what the team have done. The team have worked the ball into that position to get you one-on-one with a fullback. Just drive at him and try and make something happen. So I'd like to see a lot more from Balikwisha in these next few games. And I'm going with Dyson through the middle. Like I say, very difficult. Very, very difficult to see where Dyson Maeda's form comes back from. Given this speculation, it's not speculation, I mean, he's confirmed it in quotes to the media. Brendan Rodgers has confirmed it today. He wants to move on. Now, that's where it comes down to Brendan Rodgers and the player himself to buy back in, to give everything he's got, even if it's for another 4 or 5 months until the January window. But again, I'm just not sure that I'm just not sure Iheanacho is in a position to start this game. I don't think he'll go with Yamada. Shin Yamada's not in the Europa League squad. And who else have we really got in that position now? Ida's gone. Osmond, never in contention to even make a squad. And Johnny Kenny, who I just don't see as a starting Celtic striker either. So I think we're going to have to go with Dyson through the middle until Iheanacho is in a position where he can start and where he's fit and he's sharp enough to start. I think Iheanacho can come good. I think he can score goals in Scotland for Celtic, absolutely, no doubt about it. It's just about his condition and his desire, his mental desire to be here. I think his career has fallen off really in the last couple of seasons. He's only 28 years of age. He should start. This is his peak years. Should be his peak years. He should have that chip on his shoulder. He should have a fire within him to try and make something of these peak years of his career. And hopefully he can do something for us. But I don't think he'll be ready to start this game tomorrow. Right. Let's go back to the comments then before we round off. A couple of comments saying that nobody's got any worries about Donovan starting the game. I think, like I say, he's done well. It's just a test for him now to do it from the start. But again, no pressure on the young boy, because as his first start in the first team, he's going to have to adapt. It's not all going to be plain sailing. And I think there will be patience with him from the supporters' point of view. Green for Goat, McGregor has been rotten since Angie's first season. I bet he's still playing in that role when he's 35 with games passing him by. I think that's a fair point. Talking about Celtic in terms of their recruitment and their planning, you have to go back to Scott Brown and his role at Celtic, where he was such a key player for us. He drove the team for years. He's an absolute legend. He was a hero. But he stayed too long and we didn't replace him. We kept him in the team too long, to the point where he couldn't contribute in the way that we were so used to. And it's because his legs were going. He didn't have that same power to get about the pitch, because age catches up with everybody. And I would hate for that to happen to Callum McGregor as well. And I think what that comment's saying there is, you can see it. It's maybe already starting to happen in some of these bigger games. There's no doubt he has underperformed so far this season, particularly against Kairat, particularly against Rangers at Ibrox. And again, that makes it a glaring issue for Celtic, that they have to think, how do they plan for life after Callum McGregor? But look at Celtic's ability to plan to even replace Kyogo, to replace Kuhn. There's going to have to be huge changes in the Celtic recruitment structure, and at board level, there's going to have to be a root and branch reorganisation of how things are done at recruitment level for us to plan properly to replace Callum McGregor. Because, like I say, there's been a lot more pressing, immediate concerns that have been ignored and have fell by the wayside this summer. So I think it's a fair point. Hopefully McGregor can find some form, but again, hopefully that the manager or someone can find something to sort of lessen the load on Callum McGregor between now and the end of this season. What are the changes you forced out? Right, any more before we finish up? We've been on for how long? Half an hour now. This is longer than I thought we'd get on Sunday's game. I can't see so many changes at the back line. Scales at left back and Trusty or Murray at centre back. Are any of Trusty or Murray injured? I'm not sure. Trusty, I don't really see it. He's not played so much. I think he played the game against Falkirk in the League Cup, didn't he? The Friday night game. Scales to left back. I'm just not sure he's got the mobility for it. If we're going to go and attack the game and take the game to Kilmarnock, I'm just not sure Scales has got the mobility to get up and down. I think that's shoehorning him in. I think Sriracha, if he's going to be here and contribute and he's here to back up Kieran Tierney and Tierney's out, then you've got to surely play him. Joseph Agnew, Paul, question, how are the fans going to get in if the gates are shut after 12 minutes? Listen, we'll see how it unfolds. I think some people will choose to go in as normal, and like I say, that's absolutely fine. So, we'll see how it unfolds. I think there's just an intention to make a visible form of protest because this is the first game since all the fallout has happened, and I think that's absolutely fine. Like I say, it's up to each individual to make their own decision about how they want to voice their concerns, because I mean, I've barely came across a supporter who doesn't have a concern about how the summer went, and like I say, it's not the first time, and that's why there's such agitation about it. Right, that's it for tonight. Thank you for jumping on this live stream and joining us. Nearly 500 of you on throughout the stream, so thank you very much for that, and I will see you on Sunday after the game. Cheers.